the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. With a lot of hockey and baseball to a little BS. It's the BS Sports Show with Brendan Azoff and Stefan Rosner on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the BS Sports Show live on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. My name is Brendan Azoff, and joining me momentarily is the one and only Stefan Rosner. We have a lot of hockey and baseball news to dive into today as the NHL's first round is winding down and the MLB continues to create unwanted headlines in the news. At the 9:40 hour, we will have Christian Arnold of NYIHockeyNow to come on and discuss the Islanders and their current series with the Capitals. And Stefan, are you ready to have some fun tonight?
Am I ready to have some fun tonight? Every night. Speaking of having fun, if you could see this, Tito Anthony Bavillier, always telling us to have fun. Get this shirt at yesmanoutfitters.com. Great shirt, Long Island company. Definitely support them. It's an awesome shirt, very comfortable as well.
Yeah, that's great. And, the shirt is, depictive of what Tito Bavillier has been doing for the Islanders in this first round and the qualifying round as well. But let's get into some of the NHL headlines, starting with last night's action. Obviously, there's games going on today, but let's go previously first. Vegas, they breezed past Chicago in the first round. They win the series 4-1. And really, despite a lackadaisical performance in Game 5 from Robin Lehner, it was still Vegas just all the way.
Completely. Like you said, Leonard didn't have the best game, the last game, but 5-1 in the playoffs, 2.44 goals against average, 904 save percentage. And since coming to Vegas, he's been an absolute brick wall. Fleury doesn't get the start, so clearly they have faith in what he brings. And it was the coolest thing to see too after they eliminated Chicago. Again, Leonard was traded from Chicago at the deadline. He shook hands with every one of the Blackhawks, hugged all of them, and you could just know that he was giving inspiring messages to all of them. On Twitter, he reached out saying, "Great series, bright future ahead, class act guy, really hard to root against him."
I completely agree. You could tell that it meant a lot to him to play in that series, and it's not the type of guy that nobody wanted. Like, they were happy for Robin Lehner to advance on to the next round. Vegas was outscored Chicago 15-11. The game was in the series, not in that game, obviously, but the Game 5 was played continuously in Chicago's end, as were most of the games in that series. Lehner is 5-1 in the postseason now with a 2.44 goals against average. Pretty solid numbers, and Vegas looks like a wagon just moving on to the next round. Carter Hart had back-to-back shutouts for the Flyers. They're playing right now as well, but Philadelphia's up 3-1 in the series. Very low scoring, which is a surprise considering how good Philadelphia's offense looked. The goals are 6-5. Montreal, they're in favor of Montreal, but Philly leads the series 3-1.
That's so interesting because we talk about Montreal, and it was either Carey Price going to have to steal games because Montreal can't score. We talked about it in the qualifying rounds where you're getting secondary scoring from the defense. Jeff Peachy with 2 goals. Weber a goal. You're getting secondary scoring for a team that really didn't show any offense throughout the whole year, is finding it now, and they're finding it at the best time.
They really are, and it's been a pretty interesting series to watch. A lot of goaltending, which might not be the most appealing to the average fan, but to somebody who watches the game as closely as we do, it's really fun to watch 2 great goalies battle it out. And you also have the Flames and the Stars, who might actually be one of the more intriguing series of the first round. It's 3-2 Dallas. It's gone back and forth the whole time. And the Calgary Flames are missing Matthew Tkachuk, which has been a huge loss so far.
You look at Matthew Tkachuk, and he's one of those guys. You could look at other teams, a Ryan Reeves, a Tom Wilson. Out of all of them, Tkachuk's obviously the most talented offensive player. We've seen what he could do. One of the greatest goals I've ever seen was his between the legs and right before overtime, I think, or with seconds left in overtime against Nashville, against an elite goalie in Pecorine. Brilliant. But he's a pest. He's got Marchand skills, but a lot more size to him. His brother, Brady Tkachuk, he was at the top 5 in hits in the entire NHL. So not having a guy like this, especially in a series where Dallas is a physical team, they got big bodies, not having him is a big loss, and it could be a reason why they lose this series.
Yeah, Tkachuk took a groin shot and a head shot in Game 2. So despite how tough he is and how physically gifted he is, that's enough to get any man out of a game in a series, let alone. So we'll see if he can come back for what could be a decisive Game 6 and help Calgary stave off elimination. So now it's time to move on to the Zello NHL scoreboard update, brought to you by Zello Clothing. See their latest styles on Instagram at Zello Clothing, that's Zello Clothing, or on their website, zelloclothing.com. Obviously, the Flyers and Canadiens are the lone game that's on TV right now. The Flyers have just tied it up. It is now 1-1 in the second period, early in the second. The Lightning defeated the Blue Jackets 5-4 in OT. Braden Point with another OT winner. They win the series 4-1. Boston defeated Carolina 2-1. Patrice Bergeron with his second game-winning goal of the series. Boston advances to the next round. And the Colorado Avalanche win 7-1 for the second game in a row. Absolutely rolling over the Arizona Coyotes. They too advance to the next round.
Going back to the Montreal Flyers game, the Flyers are on a 5-minute power play as Kotkaniemi was ejected for boarding against Travis Sanheim. So that is being served by Charles Hudon. But again, hockey fans know a game misconduct, 5-minute major. It does not go away once a goal is scored. So I'm pretty sure the Flyers are still on the power play in this one. It looks like they have 4:10 left on their power play. That's a big loss for Canadians because Kotkaniemi has been absolutely great for them.
Yeah, I saw a glimpse of the hit. It didn't look good. Sanheim got up bloody all over his visor. I think it was a boarding hit. So obviously not a hit you want to see. Kotkaniemi is a very good player for Montreal. He's come alive in this postseason as a youngster. So that's a big loss, especially since this is a must-win game for them in order to stave off elimination. So, Stefan, we're going to go over our standouts now in these playoffs so far, at least in the first round, and we're going to kick things off to you. You got a good one up top.
Yeah, so I picked Nazem Kadri before today. And before today, he was killing it. Big guy in the power play. Great guy. You look back at that trade, right? Tyson Barrie for Kadri. You would think that Toronto won that deal because they needed defense. Barrie was coming off an unreal season. Kadri was, a depth center. This is what Kadri's doing right now. 11 points in 8 games. Got 6 goals, 5 assists. 5 power play goals.
Unreal.
Had 2 goals and assists in Game 4 Onslaught, a 7-1 game. And obviously, the next game, Game 5, was also a 7-1 win. He had 2 goals as well. His second line with Jonas Donskoy and Valeri Nichushkin has been brilliant. Donskoy is not a guy that gets a lot of credit, but he's playing second line minutes, and that line is clicking. Again, the power play has been clicking as well. Again, that trade, man, you look back at that. We talked earlier that Toronto could not afford to keep Kadri. They had to move him. They really thought they were getting a great defenseman in return. Seems like when defensemen go to Toronto, they just die. Seems like be the case, but Kadri's paid off, and the Avalanche are just rolling.
They really are, and that's a great pick because Nazem Kadri has just looked unreal, especially in that bumper spot in the middle on the power play. And that's a team you give any type of power play chance to, they're going to convert. And Arizona learned that the really, really hard way. Fun
fact, Avalanche scored 2 power play goals in the first period, or 2 power play goals before 10 minutes. I think they scored 3. So in the first 10 minutes, they scored more power play goals than the New York Islanders have in the series against the Washington Capitals. Yep. All right, moving on. My other player is Pierre-Luc Dubois. He has, despite Columbus being eliminated, he has been the player they expected. You could think about Anthony Beauvillier and the Islanders. These are talented players, but never really showed that superstar offensive ability, but we're seeing it now. 10 games, he's got 4 goals, 5 assists. He only scored 18 goals in the year, but it doesn't matter. It's what you do in the playoffs. And this is what people have been waiting for. He's playing top center minutes, and he's definitely played a lot better in these playoffs. Definitely something to build off of for next season.
Yeah, he looks like a player that he's coming into his own. And obviously under a Tortorella system, you're not going to be able to shine offensively. We've seen every team he plays for, they don't really have those elite goal scorers, and that's because he makes you pack it into your own end, and that's why they're successful. But Pierre-Luc Dubois in this postseason showed glimpses of star offensive potential. And like you said, his size makes him very difficult to bump off a puck. And I think he's going to be able to use that in the future when Columbus is in the postseason again to his advantage.
Yeah, he's a big boy.
He really is.
My last pick, my only goaltender. I know, Brendan, when we get to you have a few goaltenders on there. Mine's Jake Allen. And the biggest thing for me is the guy lost his starting job last year to Binnington. Fair enough. Binnington killed it. And then, we know how that ended with the Stanley Cup. And then this year, Jake Allen only plays 24 games this year. Career low. But he puts up 2.15 goals against average, .927 save percentage. And when Binnington struggled in the playoffs, Jake Allen comes in. 2-0-1 record, 1.20 goals against average, .961 save percentage. He played the last 2 games against Vancouver. 2-0, .954 save percentage, 1.5 goals against average. They're going to ride him. Why not? He's been the better goaltender. And I think, look at a goal like this, a veteran. I think the break of only playing 24 games in the season, not that it was good that he didn't play a lot, I think it let him get back to the basics. You're playing a lot of games. It's really hard to take a breath, sit down and go, okay, I got to fix this. I got to fix that. He's playing limited games. He's watching what Binnington's doing. He has more time to look at video. He's seeing obviously watching from the bench. You're seeing what's happening on the ice a lot more. You're learning tendencies. I think the break really helped him. Not saying next year he should start, but it's clearly worked, and he's going to take this and run with it as long as he can go.
We talked about this in an earlier episode of this podcast, how Jake Allen looked very impressive this season despite the limited games. And you got to remember, this is a guy that's been in this role before. When he first came up with Brian Elliott, he split time. So he's not a foreign person to the backup role and having to come into games. And he's done his job. He's rested. He's in great shape. Obviously, he's watched these guys play. Even though he's on the bench, he's picking up tendencies. And he's just run away with this series. He's been the turning point for St. Louis, and now it's even. And we'll see how they do tonight. But going to my breakouts in these playoffs, or standouts, I should say, I have 3 goalies because to me, the playoffs have just been determined by goaltenders so far. We talked about the Philly-Montreal series, which is legitimately 6-5 in goals before this game. It's now 7-6. So there's 13 goals scored in 5 games, which is just extremely low scoring. My first is Jonas Korpisalo, who put up a .941 save percentage this postseason and is now eliminated from the playoffs. He had a 3-5 record, a losing record, with a .941 save percentage and a 1.90 goals against average with 2 shutouts. Just it stinks to see for him because he played his heart out, and Columbus they were a tired team come the end of that series, and Tampa Bay just beat them.
Look, this matchup with Columbus and Tampa is not what we saw last year. Last year, we saw a not ready Tampa Bay Lightning team and a completely over ready Columbus Blue Jackets team that just, created opportunities, scored all the time, came through when they needed to, and they just dominated a top team. But this year, it was a battle. It was a battle for Columbus to win a game. They stayed at it, though, and you have to give them a lot of credit because Korpisalo is a special talent. Now, this year, Bobrovsky leaves. Goaltending was a really big question mark, and not only do they have 1 answering goal with Korpisalo, they have 2 with Merzlikins. Merzlikins was hurt, but you weren't starting Merzlikins anyway with the way Korpisalo played in the qualifiers, and now in this series, you do feel bad. You look at the game today, and it wasn't his best. He let in a couple of soft ones, but when a goalie plays like that for the whole entire playoffs, his team's got to be there to back him up. And Tampa, it went to overtime, and Tampa got the last laugh, and they move on. But definitely, John Tortorella walked out of his post-game interview like he usually does. He's not happy. I don't blame him. I'm assuming everyone's upset. I would like them to be. They just lost in the playoffs. But you look back, and what an unreal season given what they lost and how they battled back to make the playoffs, and they made a statement.
They did. And now we're going to move on to my second standout, who's Darcy Kemper. And I'm not even going to read off his stats because he wound up 4-5 in the playoffs. His goals against is going to be well over 3. To me, he does not, his numbers do not dictate how well he played this postseason. I think that he proved to everybody he is a legitimate number 1 goalie in this league, and he got completely left out to dry by the Arizona Coyotes in the last 2 games of this series. He gave up 4 in game 4, and he gave up 6 today in game 5. And I mean, the goals that he allowed today, yes, he allowed 6 goals. I don't think he had a chance on any of them. Maybe he wants 1 back, but it was just McKinnon wiring from the slot. You got Rantanen wiring 1 from the slot. It's just Kadri 2 from the slot and 1 on a breakaway. It's just absurd what this guy was put in the line of fire with. And, he played extremely well. And to me, he stood out for the Arizona Coyotes during the postseason. This
is not a guy that's going to win a Vezina this year, but his stats he played 29 games this year. Put the record aside of 16-11-2. He had a 2.22 goals against average and a .928 save percentage. I mean, he was phenomenal. He was phenomenal in the playoffs. Again, another goalie like a Korpisalo who has to make a statement that you're a true number 1 in the league, and you hit it right on the head. He is, and he's going to be next year. And I think that he played well. His team did not play well in front of him today. Ronta did come in for the 3rd. I thought that Kemper might get pulled sooner, just given the fact that Rick Teixeira, he had to wake his team up. But the team looked lifeless right from the start. And you knew it was going to be one of those runaway games yet again when they scored, I think, 3 goals in the first period. Arizona looked defeated. Taylor Hall, I think he has 1 goal this year's, and it was an empty netter. I mean, it could be his last game in an Arizona Coyotes uniform, but you have to give credit to Kemper when it's due, and he definitely deserved it. And obviously he's going to be pissed off the way it ended, but he did all he could in this series and in the regular season to get them to this point.
Yeah, he did. And Colorado is just a phenomenal team, as we'll talk about in a little bit, but they just proved that Arizona was not ready for this stage. My final one is Carey Price. Obviously, we don't need to say much about him. 4-4 this postseason, 1.48 goals against average, .949 save percentage with 2 shutouts. He's just doing Carey Price things. We talked about how he's going to steal 1 game in Pittsburgh, the Pittsburgh qualifying round series, and we thought that Pittsburgh would win 3-1. But didn't turn out to be the case. In fact, it was Montreal winning 3-1, basically because of Carey Price. And now they don't look like they're in good shape in this series, but the only reason it's close is because of Carey Price. He's allowed, Philadelphia's up 2-1. So now he's allowed 7 goals in 5 games. But that still is just unreal. And, people talked about his injuries, him aging. Doesn't matter. He is still a top tier goalie and probably the best goalie in the NHL.
Wow. Coming from you, really? You really
I have to say, the way he's played this postseason. I mean, he's shown glimpses of being overrated. He also reminds me a lot of Henrik Lundqvist just because he's so good and the team in front of him isn't. And it feels like he's going to have that same career trajectory as Lundqvist. So I feel for him. But yes, what he's doing right now is just, you can't beat him.
I mean, he played a ton of games this year, which could be a reason for the stats not being as good as he wants them to be. 58 games played, 27, 25, and 6 record, 2.79 goals against average, and a 909 save. But like we said, Carey Price was going to have to steal at least one game in a series, and he did more than that. And, if they get eliminated tonight, they get eliminated. But this wasn't a team that was really expected to do much. Actually, Pittsburgh was really expected to just roll over them because Pittsburgh scores goals, Montreal does not. However, Montreal took Pittsburgh down. Carey Price played phenomenal. And the Flyers are just a team that no one really thought was going to do much. I was only one apparently, but they would somehow win. But that was just a gut feeling because I hate them so much. So I knew that they would ruin my day by doing that. But you look at Montreal Canadiens, and he's the face of the franchise. He's like a Lundqvist. You think of Canadiens, you think of Carey Price. Now maybe Shea Weber for the younger fans, but he doesn't count. So you look at it, and it's just, how much longer does Carey Price have to win with Montreal? And is Montreal set to do that? I think seeing what Kotkaniemi did, besides the hit, obviously, no bueno. This team has a young team that could do damage next year. But again, time's running out. But Carey Price, no one expected him to do what he did in the playoffs, and he did just that, which is why he made your list.
Yep, and listen, Montreal kind of hurt themselves by going this far in the playoffs because I'm sure Mark Bergevin would have wanted a higher draft pick because you're going to lose in the first round anyway. But moving on quickly, we're going to touch about the Rangers and their free agency dilemma a little bit. I wrote an article for the Hockey Writers discussing a couple of free agents that they could pick up. Obviously, they have Ryan Strome, who's an RFA, Jesper Foss is a UFA, and Tony DeAngelo, who apparently asked a fan to fight in front of Madison Square Garden today, got into a little bit of a Twitter beef. So that's a fun fact if you didn't know that. But they're all free agents, and obviously Ryan Strome and Tony DeAngelo are priorities. It's going to be tough to bring them back in a flat cap. They're going to have to do some maneuvering, but there's a couple of cheap pieces, such as Brad Richardson of the Coyotes, career 51.4% on the faceoffs. Derek Brassard, a former Ranger. Joel Edmondson, who's a very good defenseman from Carolina. Nate Thompson, who's, I think, leading the NHL playoffs with the 66% faceoff percentage this postseason. And Zach Bogosian, who could be a serviceable defenseman, very cheap, which I don't want them to go to, but he is affordable. But those 5 names you could be on the lookout for. Jeff Gordon's going to do his due diligence, and I expect a couple of those players to get some calls because they have a gaping hole in the 3rd and 4th line center.
You have to think Fast is gone. You just have to think he's gone. Strome's iffy, just the fact that, like you said, the top priority is probably Tony DeAngelo, given the fact that the Rangers have offense. They need defense, and obviously if you have to choose, you need the defenseman. Mm-hmm. But, Ryan Strome had a great season. He seems to have found a home. He doesn't want to move. I know that for a fact because he said it. He's been around the block with Islanders, Oilers, comes to the Rangers, and now, he has success, and you don't want to leave that, obviously. So we'll see what happens with that. But you look at the top free agents around the league that are available. Alex Pietrangelo, captain of the St. Louis Blues. Braden Holtby, who is probably not coming back for the Capitals. They won't be able to afford him, let alone his terrible play. Taylor Hall and the Coyotes, who did nothing in the playoffs, really, and, we know about him. Torrey Krug, great defenseman for the Bruins. Smaller in size, but again, a very good puck-moving defenseman. Robin Lehner, who, if Vegas was smart, they would find a way to re-sign him because you didn't start Fleury for a reason in the playoffs. You had more faith in Lehner. That means something. And then you look at it, you also have Tyson Barrie, defenseman. Mike Hoffman on Florida, who I hope the Islanders go after. If the Rangers and Islanders go between that, which it shouldn't, again, because the Rangers need defense.
The Rangers will not be going after Mike
thank
Hoffman.
God. All right, I could breathe a sigh of relief. You look at the top RFAs. Matt Murray. Good luck whoever takes him. Nikita Zadorov. Ryan Strome, like we just talked about. Tony DeAngelo. Andre Burakovsky. Connor Brown. Max Domi. And Andreas Athanasiou. So there's options out of it. This is not a weak free agency class by any means. There's going to be a lot of money handed out. It'll be really interesting to see with the flat cap how not – I don't want to use the word selfish, but you look at hockey's they're very good in their community. They know what's going around the world. They're not really selfish with money because they don't make as much as many other sports. I talked about this with Matt Barzal. I really do have a strong feeling that he's going to take a lower contract because, these teams are going to sign these guys. They want to be able to build around them. If they sign Matt Barzal to as cheap as possible, then they can go after a guy like Hoffman. But if Barzal asks for the most possible for his RFA deal, then it really limits what they could sign. So a lot of these teams that go after players like this, they're going to try to get them on the cheap end because that's how business works. But I'm curious to see how much players do ask for in this unprecedented times.
Yeah, I think in regards to the RFAs, because obviously UFAs, they're free to do whatever they want. Those contracts are definitely going to be interesting. But for the RFAs, I think we're going to see a lot of arbitration hearings this offseason because they're going to ask for what they're worth, and rightfully so. But teams are now stuck with a cap that's not going to be moving, so they're going to lowball them. And I want to see how the arbitrator rules. I think that you're going to see a couple of very team-friendly deals, which stinks for these free agents who paid their dues and are looking for bigger contracts. But the COVID-19 and pandemic, it's ruined so many jobs. It's hurt so many careers, and it's going to affect the professional athletes as well. Moving on to Jordan Binnington. Obviously, we talked about Jake Allen's performance. Binnington struggled 0-4 with a 4.27 goals against average this postseason and an .862 save percentage. So obviously a complete 360 from where he was last season come playoff time.
Completely different. And like I said, Jake Allen's run with it. Binnington has not been good. He did not have a great regular season either. I mean, look, those stats are they're abysmal. And for a St. Louis Blues team that's trying to show last year wasn't a fluke, or last half a season and playoffs wasn't a fluke because they were bad for the first half. They were in last place. It's very interesting to see. Is he a one and done? Look back at like a guy like Andrew Hammond, who gets called up by Ottawa, goes on an absolute tear, and then is not even talked about, and he's in the minor leagues now. Do we have a case with this with Binnington? I don't think so. I think Binnington's a lot better. I just think everything that happened to him last year, the adrenaline, everything like that played a huge part. And this year is a little bit different given the fact that your team did win. Now you have a lot of pressure to do exactly what you did last year. And he hasn't done that. I think it's a good learning curve for him, like quote unquote sophomore slump. I think that's what we're seeing right now. I think he's going to be fine next year, but right now it hasn't been good. He's going to support Jake Allen in there, and hopefully he rebounds.
Yeah, let's not forget he also had 4.5 months off between playing in the regular season and playoffs, so that definitely hurts him as well. Tuukka Rask opted out because of his daughter's medical emergency. Obviously, you can't criticize somebody for opting out during COVID. The Bruins are 3-0 since his departure and did win the series. They are playing and rallying around Yaroslav Halak. The Philadelphia Flyers just gave up a power play goal to Montreal, so it's now 3-2 Montreal in the second period. And when we come back, we have Christian Arnold of NYIHockeyNow. So don't go anywhere. Stay tuned for that interview.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. You're listening to the BS Sports Show on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the BS Sports Show on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. We're going to dive into the Isles and Cap series. Obviously, being a New York-based podcast, Stefan has had a heart attack the last couple of games, especially after blowing a 2-goal lead in Game 4, looking for the sweep. But the Islanders have looked good. They're up 3-1. They just have to find a way to shut down Ovechkin in these elimination games, and I think they'll be all right.
Brendan, I was so excited to come on this show, this radio show, wearing my Islander jersey, Islander hat. Green screen was not going to have our logo. It would definitely have I think it was going to have the Barzal celebration. I was so pumped. I had it all planned out, and the Islanders had to play 3 years ago Islander hockey, where it was just get a lead, blow it. The hardest thing was they came out so strong, and you expected the Capitals to push back. Obviously, the Capitals are a veteran team. We saw it in the game in January. The Islanders had a 4-1 lead going into the third period. Case closed, usually for Islander games, especially under Trotz. That's a win, lockdown defense we saw in the first couple of games in the series. That's how the Islanders win games. Well, Devon Taves decided to mimic Evgeny Kuznetsov, and that was a mistake because Caps came back. Ovechkin finished off a hat trick. They lose that game 6-4. They play the Capitals again later in the year, and they have a lead going to the third. They don't blow it. So yesterday was a kind of a shock given the fact that they played so strong, and then they started taking penalties. It took penalties, and Capitol's power play, is not anywhere close to the Islanders when you have a guy like Ovechkin on that unit. And then you saw the pace of play change. You saw the Capitals play extremely aggressive, finishing every hit. They got out hit in the game. I think it was 40-35, something around there. They got out hit, but their hits a lot harder, not vicious. I mean, they have Tom Wilson on the ice. It could get vicious, but they were just finishing their checks. I know Cal Clutterbuck, which we'll ask Christian Arnold about later, was dumping the puck into the zone after the fourth line was pinned in their own end for, I think, like 2 minutes and 30-something seconds.
Yep.
And Racco Gudas levels him with a hip check. We haven't seen hip checks in a very long time, but gets him. He does not return for the rest of the game. And pretty much from that point on, you knew the Caps were going to win the game. And then we talked about it, how when Ovechkin got on that 2-on-1, Devon Taves is playing the pass, as every defenseman is taught to do, except the only guy you should never play the pass against is Ovechkin, because he's not gonna pass that. Yes, like we talked about earlier, he would toe drag probably around the defenseman, score a beautiful goal anyway, and embarrass the Islanders organization as a whole. But a perfectly placed shot, and it was detrimental, and they lose this game. Christian Arnold is here. Let's get him on the show.
Perfect.
What is up, Christian? How are you doing?
Hey guys, how's it going?
I hear in your voice too. He's a little upset too about the game last night. It makes sense. All right.
That was a rough one to sit through.
It was a rough one to sit through, and as both of us being writers, obviously you're more higher up than me. Having to write a post-game article, anything about the game, I went to sleep. I didn't even write it last night. I woke up early. I said, I can't do this. I can't do it. But all right, let's dive into what you have a new thing going on here. We'll get into it. Tell us a little bit about NYIHockeyNow.
Oh, I appreciate you guys allowing me to plug my nonsense. It's a new Islanders website. We're covering the Islanders extensively, similar to kind of what you're seeing with The Athletic. There's some free stuff. There's some premium stuff when you sign up for a membership. I know you have already signed up, so I do appreciate that. A good friend right there. So that's how you know, I think, right?
Yeah.
But we're doing a lot of good stuff. I think the whole idea is to give Islander fans a lot of really good content. Because there's obviously a lot of content out there when it comes to sports and stuff, but I think the Islanders are a bit of an underserved market, and our task at hand is just to kind of provide Islander fans with more coverage and good professional coverage. The idea is once things get back to normal, whatever that looks like down the road, we'll be on the road a little bit and more as things kind of get off the ground. We're going to have someone up in Bridgeport covering the Sound Tigers on a pretty regular basis as well. So we're really going to try and encompass the entire idea of the New York Islanders franchise from the top down.
Love it. I mean,
awesome.
You don't get sick of Islanders content unless it's about them blowing leads. But luckily for us, we haven't seen that really often over the last 2 years.
I can tell you, I get sick of Islanders content. That's because I'm a Rangers fan, though.
That's fair. That's totally fair. I get that. I totally do. As long as you're still clicking on it, though, I don't have a problem with you being sick of it.
Of course, I'm going to click on it. I love reading what you write. But obviously, you've been covering the Islanders all season, watching them very closely. And have they surprised you at all of how strong they've played this postseason? Obviously, they had a little hiccup in Game 4, but have they surprised you with their play?
Yeah, the postseason, I think, has been really interesting because I think it's kind of a return to form for the Islanders and really where we saw them at the earlier part of the year. I'm sure you guys both remember the way the Islanders are playing in October and November and a little bit of December. And that was really the Islanders at their best. They were fully healthy. They had bought into the Trotz system. They really were playing the kind of hockey that we're seeing right now. So it's not surprising considering the amount of injuries that they've had, especially the second half of the season. They lose Adam Pelech, which was huge, and no one really contemplated that being such a huge loss until it happened. You're without Casey Zizekas and Cal Clutterbuck at certain points. You're dealing with other injuries that you just really didn't foresee, and so that really hurt the Islanders. And I think now you see them at full strength. You see them with depth in a lot of positions that they didn't have depth earlier in the year, and that's certainly helped. So I think it's surprising to see how handily they had handled the Capitals up until this point, because I think even Barry Trotz wouldn't have really seen the 3-0 series lead going to Game 4, but obviously the Caps kind of turned it on a bit. But yeah, no, I think it's surprising in that sense. We all knew that the Islanders are good when they're playing their game. I don't think people really anticipated or maybe respected them enough to give them the credit that this was going to be a team that really could compete the way they have been in the postseason.
So was it a surprise, though, the way Semyon Varlamov has played this postseason, given the fact that he was consistent during the regular season, nothing too impressive. He made big saves at times, but he has come to life in these playoffs.
Yeah, no, I think you look at the way he's played, right? I think it's helped that the healthy defenseman in front of him, you have a healthy defensive core. You have a veteran like Andy Green who stepped in and filled in for Johnny Boychuk, who is healthy, by the way. So you really have this depth and these options for the team that you didn't have before. So that certainly helps, and it makes the Islanders' goaltender's job a little easier. Thomas Greiss, too, would probably have the same benefit if he was in net. So I think on one hand, I think the consistency helps Varlamov. I think we've talked about this before away from, microphones and Twitter, and he plays better when he's in there consistently, and he's basically been their starter for a while now. So it shouldn't have been too much of a surprise that he's been in there. Like I said, the help comes from the guys in front of him, and there's certainly a comfort level for them knowing that Varlamov he's made the big saves when he's had to. He hasn't faced a ton. The 29 shots that the Islanders gave up in Game 4 was the most they've given up in the entire postseason, which is incredible. And it really goes to talk about how the Islanders system works, especially in the playoffs. So that's only benefited Semyon Varlamov. And so that's great for the Islanders. He hasn't had to have a ton of work, but when he's had to face some tough shots, he's made the big saves. For the most part, I should say. The other night, maybe a little bit withstanding.
The other night, everyone was a little off, so we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. So the Achilles heel for the Islanders in the playoffs has been their power play. In this, they're 1 for 19 in this series. What changes can they make personnel-wise on their power play to get this thing going? Because we saw in Florida, they had the Beauvillier lineup for the quick one-timer, top of the circle, and it worked. Capitals know that's coming, and they're taking that away. What can they do?
Yeah, they've watched the game tape. I think a lot of the guys have said it over the last couple games. The Capitals have watched the game tape, and they've certainly adjusted, and they've made the necessary moves to counter that. That being said, I don't know. It's a good question because there's really not a lot of moves that they could do with the roster that they have, because as great as the Islanders are, they are a great team first built roster. But when you look at what the Islanders need, and that's a score. Someone said that today earlier on Twitter to me, and they were spot on. The Islanders don't have a finisher on the roster really. Matt Barzal maybe, because he's their best player and he's essentially their star, but he's not the finisher that the Islanders need at the moment anyway. I don't want to take anything away from Barzal, but that's the big thing. The Islanders just don't have a finisher. They have a lot of great playmakers, especially when it comes to their special teams guys. They just don't have that finisher, and I think that's what's kind of lacking, because you look at the Capitals, right? Everyone knows the puck's going Alexander Ovechkin. It's not a secret. Even if someone who has watched hockey for 2 days and they've just seen 2 Capitals games, everyone knows that Alexander Ovechkin's getting the puck on the power play. The problem with that, though, too, is that the Capitals also have a couple other weapons. The Islanders really don't have those options. The Islanders have Barzal, who maybe, I guess, is on the Capitals, maybe is the secondary option when it comes to scoring, but they just don't have the finisher there, and I think that's kind of what you've seen brought to light here in the postseason, where they're just lacking that. That being said, though, I will say you look at when the Islanders have scored on the power play, it's come up in big moments, which has been very beneficial for them. So maybe they're not capitalizing on every power play chance that they get, but the ones that they have were certainly important moments in the game.
You look at the Capitals, and you have Ovechkin lined up in that one-time slot on the left side, and the Islanders have Bailey. So not a knock on Bailey, but he's no Ovechkin, and he's not going to take a shot like that. But yeah,
I mean, they did hit 2 posts. Beauvillier hit a couple of posts on the power play in that game too, so it's a little bit of bad puck luck. But they did lose focus last night after getting out to an early 2-0 lead. Do you think the Capitals just woke up, or was it more on the Islanders for getting a little sloppy?
I think it was a little bit of both, because the Capitals certainly they were pissed. I think you sensed that frustration when Alexander Ovechkin just went after Casey Cizikas. In a normal game, Alexander Ovechkin is not going after Casey Cizikas. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. And I looking back on it, hindsight's always 20/20. I know I tweeted last night that kind of a shot at that. I'm like, I hope that getting that frustration was worth it for Ovi, because he got called for a 2-minute power play penalty, and it was, because after that you really sensed that the Capitals kind of got a kick in the pants, and their urgency was there, and their battle level was there, and like all those coaching cliches that we hear and we kind of just roll our eyes on, they exemplified them after that, because the Islanders had dominated the first 10 minutes of that game. And I think there was a lot of people that were just ready to go, all right, this series is done. Islanders have booked their ticket. And the Capitals, to their credit, they just said, screw that. And they came back and they fought and they played the way they needed to. That also threw the Islanders off their game a bit, because you saw the Islanders get kind of tossed around a little bit. The Capitals were playing their game. They were playing their frustrating physical style of hockey. And they threw the Islanders off. And that's not to say the Islanders can't play physical hockey, but, they had their pests doing what their pests do best. And that was kind of giving the Islanders a hard time. It was forcing the Islanders to take silly penalties. Matt Barzal taking 2 penalties in the first 5 minutes of the second period was brutal. And that really led to the 2 goals that the Capitals scored to tie the game. And then it was just downhill from there, because once they had the momentum, the Capitals never took their foot off the gas. And they were pounding away at the Islanders and pounding away at the Islanders and pounding away at the Islanders. And they, for the first time, the Islanders looked tired and they looked worn down for the first time really in the postseason. Because if you look back at Game 3 against the Panthers, even then the Islanders were playing their game. They were the better team 5-on-5 that entire game. It was a lot of silly mistakes and special teams that cost them. This game, special teams cost them, silly mistakes cost them, and then the Capitals' game plan just cost them. The Capitals just wore them down, and that was a very interesting thing to see. And the momentum right now is in the Capitals' favor, because they're playing with house money. They have nothing to lose at this point. The pressure is on the Islanders. The pressure is on the Islanders not to choke at this point, because now the Capitals are feeling it. And that's a little concerning if you're an Islanders fan, because once the Capitals start to feel it, their game plan certainly gets going, and their game play certainly runs teams ragged. That's not to say the Islanders seemed concerned when we spoke to them over the Zoom calls the last couple days or so, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on, because the momentum shifted for sure.
Yeah, I was actually kind of shocked the Capitals didn't come out of the gate the way the Islanders did yesterday. You expected them to come out flying, and then, they go down 2 goals, a timeout's called, and then this game just completely changes. And yeah, the Islanders got bullied around. You saw their top defensive pair. They played sloppy, but it looked like they were tired. They're worn down. They're playing a lot of minutes. We'll get to it in a second. Cal Clutterbuck, he leaves the game, doesn't return. You tweeted out that it looks like he's ready to go. Regardless, though, do you see Ross Johnson sliding into this lineup somehow, maybe on the third line to take Komarov's spot, or you think he, rides the bench and they stick with the same group?
Right now, it's tough to say. Barry Trotz, the Islanders head coach, did say that they were looking at making changes at the lineup. Obviously, I think Islander fans, their first thought is, all right, let's get Ross Johnson there, because they want to match the physicality. And I think it's fair to point out, while Ross Johnson certainly does that, the Islanders' style is more suited towards putting in a guy like Tom Kuhnhackl and then possibly putting in Johnny Boychuk back in the lineup for Andy Green, because Boychuk certainly helps out on the special team side of things. So does Kuhnhackl. So those are options that are in play too. I certainly wouldn't discount that, and not to say that Ross Johnson there isn't a chance he gets in. We'll find out at some point tomorrow whether Barry Trotz mentions it. If the Islanders have availability before the game, or it turns out we see him on the ice for warmups and then in the subsequent lineup. But there's a chance that it's not Ross Johnson, and there's a chance it's Kuhnhackl, and there's a chance it's Boychuk. We just don't know at the moment. Anything's possible at this point, but I don't want people to get too disappointed because they want to see that kind of that tough guy out there in Ross Johnson, and then it ends up being Tom Kuhnhackl.
Well, yeah, if you put Ross Johnson in there, that's playing to the Capitals' way. The physicality, that's just trying to block out them. But that's not the Islanders' game plan. It's defensive. It's using the opportunities they do get. And Ross Johnson's a great skater for his size. He can definitely handle Wilson. But, do you want to put a guy like that in that moment? He might take an undisciplined penalty, and that might come back to bite the Islanders.
Yeah, no, I mean, my concern is even that as far as taking an undisciplined penalty, because I don't think that Ross Johnson really has that nature in him per se. But it's just putting in the right fit, and the Islanders have always gone with what fits them in the best situation. That's really the game plan for Barry Trotz when he was talking earlier today about what kind of changes. They're going to have some meetings, they're going to figure it out, they're going to look at the situations, and then they'll go from there. And that's really the way Trotz has coached, forever, and especially since he's got here with the Islanders.
So you mentioned how the Capitals gained a little bit of momentum and they're playing with house money. Do you think that although it's not necessarily a must-win, that Game 5 feels like the Islanders need to take it to stop and halt all the Capitals' momentum?
Oh, yeah. I think I wrote a little bit today on NYIHockeyNow about that. The Islanders, they've been in this situation before. They did it with the Florida Panthers last round. They've done it before when it comes to getting things back on track with the game one, the way they played through the first, 38 minutes or so of that game. And the Islanders have to do that now. They cannot afford to give the Capitals the momentum, because once you give the Capitals the momentum back in the game, all bets are off. There's a reason why this team was a Stanley Cup champion 2 years ago. There's a reason why they're a perennial favorite every year in the division, in the conference, because they have such a talented roster there that you give them the chance to play their game and their style, and you give them a little bit of life, they're going to run. They're going to run and take that, and it's going to be a tough game. It's going to be a tough battle for the Islanders. They have to find that resolve. They have to find that will to go out there and close the series out and not give the Capitals any sort of momentum that they would get from that. So I think you're not wrong in saying that it's kind of turned into a must win, because you don't want to give the Capitals that life and say, hey, we're keeping you guys in there, or we're giving you the chance to stay in there. So you just don't want to play that game at this point.
Well, Christian, thank you very much for joining us. Guys, this is Christian Arnold of NYIHockeyNow. Go check out his stuff. Great writer, and he's covering the Islanders throughout the postseason, so definitely follow him on Twitter and keep up to date with his new project, NYIHockeyNow.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate the time.
See you, bud. What a guy. He's my mentor. We worked at the Islanders Insight together. He's a great guy, and definitely check his stuff out. He is a top-notch professional. He has interviews with players. He's on the Zoom calls. He's in the media rooms when they were allowed to be there. So definitely a guy that must follow. C_Arnold01 on Twitter. Before we cut to commercial break in a couple of minutes, just to recap what he pretty much said is that, the Islanders don't want to make lineup changes. Clearly, it's worked. What they've done before last night's game, they were 4-0 with Komarov in the lineup on that third line. He's in there to kill penalties. And one thing we didn't talk to Arnold about was the fact that Komarov did not look good at all yesterday. He looked terrible to the point where I just couldn't believe that he was still out there. I thought maybe you'd get benched, but Clutterbuck got hurt. The whole team played bad. It's hard to pin it on Komarov, but there was few things in mind when I was watching that I saw. First off, when the Islanders win a faceoff in the defensive zone while they're killing a penalty and you have an opportunity to clear the puck and you're on the team to kill penalties, there's no excuse for that's BS, Brendan. That's BS if you can't clear the zone. And I agree. And then there was another play where the Islanders were breaking out. Don't know when in the game it was. Don't remember it all. But Komarov had an easy pass in the offensive zone to pass to someone and take a quick shot. But he passed it behind him, which means that the player now, I forgot who it was, has to corral the puck, then shoot. Timing's off completely. And I saw that and I was like, you know what? That's a little thing that people probably aren't really looking at, but that's a game changer. You got rid of a high scoring chance, and now it's a minimal scoring chance, and the Islanders didn't convert on the play. They had to reset, regroup, and it's tough to see because it's not like he's a rookie under a lot of pressure in his first playoff game. This is a veteran, and to see that really pissed me off.
Yeah, I mean, he did look shaky. I think the Islanders as a whole started to look shaky as soon as the Capitals turned it on, and Alexander Ovechkin played a big part in that, and as Christian said, and Alexander Ovechkin has either been very prevalent or very irrelevant in the series. There's been no in between. He's scored 2 goals twice. He's a great hockey player. We've all seen what he can do, but he's also disappeared at times. And I think that for the Islanders' sake, now that he's going to be there and he's going to be a force to be reckoned with in an elimination game. And coming out in Game 5, you're going to have to shut him down. If he scores 1 goal, I remember talking from experience, obviously as a Rangers fan. The Rangers played the Capitals all the time in the playoffs. Ovechkin in every single elimination game scored. It's just inevitable that he's going to put the puck in the net. He's that talented of a player. But if you hold him to 1, you're going to win the game. If the Islanders held him to 1 yesterday, I fully think that they win that hockey game. And if I'm an Islanders fan, I have the utmost confidence that they come out in Game 5 and do the job that they have to do.
You look at Ovechkin, and they woke a sleeping giant because they take, so many penalties. The problem is Ovechkin was really quiet. He scored, I think, his first goal of the series in tight, one that Varlamov definitely want back. But again, it's Ovechkin. That shot's coming in a lot harder than we see on TV. It beats him 7-hole, I believe. But you're taking all these penalties, and that's just warm-ups for Ovechkin from that slot. Yes, Varlamov did a great job besides the one that went in on reading that play. That was the one they scored was through a screen. But you woke up a sleeping giant, and now the Islanders have to put him back to bed. They got to tuck him away, kiss him goodnight, and just not let him do anything because – like we said, Devon Taves on that 2-on-1. you got to play the shot there because Alexander Ovechkin, and he's going to shoot that puck. Does Varlamov want that one back? He might want it because it's an unreal shot. It didn't beat him high. It beat him in tight, 7-hole right side on blocker. But as a goalie, you're trained, you're taking the shot usually, which means that you're giving yourself the best chance, being as aggressive as possible, take the shot. We're going to call it a perfect shot because it went where Varlamov's pads weren't. Obviously, going top shelf there probably would have done the job as well, but Ovechkin didn't want to show off that much and decided to go 7-hole. Respect to him a little bit. But like you said, you wake up Ovechkin, he's going to be here or he's not. And if the Islanders can do a better job at shutting him down, again, that comes with not taking penalties. You take penalties, you know he's going to have a high chance to come through. He's done it throughout his whole entire career. He goes from that spot. Doesn't matter what you do. He'll find a way to score. And if he doesn't, like Arnold said, which compares differently to the Islanders' power play, is they have so many other weapons. Kuznetsov, you have Carlson, Oshie. Who do the Islanders have if Bavilla is not scoring on the power play? Derek Brassard? Again, no offense to Derek. It's just to a point where the Islanders rather play 5-on-5 hockey. They've been amazing at 5-on-5 hockey. That's their bread and butter, is not taking penalties. And we saw the success in the first couple of games of the series. The Islanders were taking, I think, 2 or less penalties a game. And they were winning. Why? Because they're good at 5-on-5. It doesn't give Ovechkin the opportunity to take a shot from there, or anybody else, for that matter, on the Capitals team. So I think it's just tough as an Islander fan to see what happened yesterday. But again, like you said, tomorrow's a must-win. If the Islanders drop the game tomorrow, the Caps have complete momentum, and they win the series. I'm going to say right now, if the Islanders not get the job done, I'm saying it, get off my back. But I fully expect the Islanders to win it tomorrow. I did expect them to win it in 4. Stuff happens. It's hockey. It's hard the hardest game to win is that last game for the sweep. That's tough. And you just hope the Islanders, get back to the game again. If they played the way they played in the first 10 minutes and they got the lead and they weren't not cocky, but took their pedals off the brake, let the Capitals play their game, that's when they get in trouble. Again, we saw that in January. This Capitals team is a veteran team, and they know how to not give up and come back in key moments. They are Backstrom-less. Will Backstrom play tomorrow? Not sure. He didn't warm up in the last game, so I'm hesitant to say he probably won't be in there. But this team is definitely playing for him. They're playing as a unit, and when they play that physical, the way they played last night, things bode well for them, and it's a problem for the Islanders.
Yep, I completely agree. I think that the Islanders do win tomorrow. We've seen a lot of phenomenal shots this postseason by Michael Raffl, Hayden Fleury today, Jacob Chikrin on the Arizona Coyotes, and, of course, Ovechkin's shot yesterday. But, guys, stay with us. After this commercial break, we will announce the lucky winner of a Islanders rally towel and a Mike Sillinger bobblehead. So you don't want to miss that. And we're going to get into baseball after this commercial break, so please stay tuned.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. You're listening to the BS Sports Show on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the BS Sports Show. So it is time to announce the winner of the Mike Sillinger bobblehead and the Islanders rally towel. It was picked randomly on Twitter, and the winner is at Matt_Reds. So, Matt, congratulations. You have won. We will get in touch with you on Twitter in your DMs and set up how you're going to get the prizes. So, congratulations to Matt.
Hey, way to go, Matt. Thank you, everyone, for retweeting and following. We really, really appreciate the support. Let's get to some baseball news, Brendan. I'm already fired up with this one, right? Let me tell you, Cleveland Indians are on my naughty list because it turns out players broke protocol, went out, gave their team a chance to get this virus, and they lied about it. So let's just get into it, right?
Yep.
Zach Plesac, I think it was last week, was sent home. He was sent home because the team found out that he violated rules. They sent home a young pitcher to teach him a lesson. That's fine. Well, apparently, Mike Clevenger went out with him, lied to the team about it, which put everybody else at risk. He's now facing lashback from his team. We'll go through it. So he lied about his actions. Plesac was punished. Oliver Perez, a relief pitcher, threatened to opt out if they brought either one of those pitchers back. Adam Plutko, they hurt us bad. They lied to us. That was his quote. And the thing that gets me really, really pissed off, Brendan, you have a player on your team coming back from leukemia. That means his immune system is already very weak in Carlos Carrasco. Last year, it was a scary time. His team played for him really hard. He finds a way to come back and play the sport he loves, let alone live. Let's just do that, let alone live. comes back to play the game he loves, and he has two teammates that decide that they think them going out on August 7th in Chicago is more important than his life. Holy crap, Brendan. How wrong is that? That is mind-boggling that you could, let alone going out and breaking protocol in general, because this virus can kill anybody it can kill Freddie Freeman, an athlete, like we talked about in the last couple of shows ago. You have a guy on your team who already has a weak immune system, had cancer, came back for his team to pitch and be successful, and you do this, shame on you.
Yeah, I mean, if you weren't wearing headphones, I think we'd see steam coming out of your ears. But like you said, it's awful. And I think the action in and of itself, we've seen other teams do it. So if you just came clean, it's not forgivable, but it's understandable. I think that the fact that Clevenger lied to his teammates about it, that just makes it look so much worse, because if you're not going to be able to be honest with the guys that you're going to battle with every single day, who are you going to be able to be honest with? That's just awful that you can't come clean. And to think like Oliver Perez is an older pitcher, the MLB standards older, not life older, but he goes, if they're welcome back, I'm opting out. Like, you could tell there's a little bit of fear in the locker room now, and it's distracted them. They were so hot to start the season. They had the best rotation in baseball. I think it was a 2.43 ERA to start the season. And now you just lose two starting pitchers like that. It's a detriment to the team. It's a detriment to their baseball play on the field, and just a detriment to the organization.
First off, they're already under fire for being called the Cleveland Indians. That was the first thing. Now you just do it. I just don't understand the selfishness. Everyone, it's one thing where some athletes just don't care. I got my money. I'm playing the game. If I want to go out, I want to go out. Who cares? We've seen other teams do it, and Miami Marlins got a lot of heat for it because they cost a bunch of teams opportunities to play the sport they love in a time where, you know what? People need sports. And even if people don't love baseball and everything going on with the MLB Players Association and the owners, it was all messed up. Yeah. They finally get baseball back. And now you put yourself ahead of your teammates, the league, any player. I mean, these players have families. They have families, friends they see. They want to be able to go back home eventually. And now you're going to do this. They got caught, right? They went out August 7th. It's August 19th. They probably found out yesterday. So let's say August 17th, 19th.
No, this was found out a little. This was probably a week ago.
Okay, fair enough. Regardless, a week goes way too long between doing it.
Yeah.
Great. You're going to quarantine now for 14 days or be sent home and not be allowed to come back. Fine. Well, in those 7, 8, 9 days, 10 days, did you tell me you didn't hug a teammate, high five a teammate, kiss a teammate? You don't know. Just anything you want to do with a teammate there, even just sitting in a room with them, no mask, probably in the clubhouse. We don't see what's happening behind closed doors, but the league told teams, after a home run, you can't shake hands, celebrate. Teammates are shaking, and it's not even Clevenger or Plesac doing anything. But if Clevenger holds a baseball and throws it, and the catcher throws it back, obviously it doesn't work that quickly. But I'm saying is, you come into contact, you don't know who's coming into contact with who. Clevenger might not have seen Carrasco, but Clevenger might have seen anyone else on the team who then saw Carrasco, and you just put his life in risk. It's just not right. They should be fined. They should be suspended. They should be cut. I mean, all the things you want to do. Obviously, the Players Association probably has rules against what I just said because, I don't read the terms and agreements on anything. So that's what you get me, guys, if anyone's listening. But it's just not right. I just feel bad because, like how heartbreaking is it that Carrasco wakes up to find out this news that you have teammates in your own locker room that you trusted to do the right thing, given what you just went through. And pretty much it was a big F you to Carrasco, and that you're if anything happens to you, it's okay. I'd rather go out on the town on August 7th in Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, you're completely right. And obviously what they've done is completely wrong. We see it happen to, like you said, the Marlins. We've seen it happen to the Cardinals, and we're about to talk about how it happened with the Reds too. But despite all of this, and this is just all negative media. Obviously, the NHL zero positive test, the NBA 0 positive test. They're in a bubble. The MLB didn't really see it was feasible to be in a bubble, so they just have completely lax protocol. And now they're putting something else into play that if you test negative, you need 2 negative tests 24 hours apart to come back. If you failed to do that but are out for 14 days, they're letting you back in. And that's a protocol that's starting to be put in play because 14 days is the quarantine period. Well, I mean, you have 3 outbreaks already. How does that make any sense to Rob Manfred and everybody else there? You're putting everybody in danger. Who came up with the 14-day? These doctors that don't necessarily know enough to cure anything yet, and it's still new to everybody. So we're gonna 100%. It's 14 days and it's done. You don't know when they got it.
Same thing when you say that 6 feet's okay, 5 feet. 5 feet's not good.
What? It's ridiculous. And the Cincinnati Reds are the 3rd MLB team to be shut down because of it. So it all coincides. Obviously, what the Indians did and Plesac and Clevenger, as of now, has not affected anybody, and luckily so. But the Reds,
yet,
yeah, exactly. I mean, they've been lucky so far, but the Reds haven't been as lucky. They weren't as bad as the Marlins and Cardinals. They played today in a doubleheader, so they didn't have a big layoff. I think it was 2 postponements, or maybe even just 1. But obviously, it's not a great look when multiple teams are testing positive and they can't really trace where it's coming from. You don't know if they're going out or it's just because obviously when they're not in a bubble, there's a chance that they could pick it up. And if they just picked it up doing responsible things, you can't blame anybody. But the irresponsibility we've seen from multiple players it's just uncalled for.
And now the MLB has something in place where they hired people for the teams that monitor them doing the right thing. And I know at first they could leave the hotel and get caught, whatever. Now they're not supposed to leave. You're telling me a guy like Clevenger can't slip a security guard $1,000 so he could go get coffee just like that and go, listen, I'm going to get I mean, we don't know what they did on August 7th.
That better be a good cup of coffee.
Starbucks. I don't know. But it's just, I just don't know how you do it. I don't even feel comfortable going out to crowded areas without like the thought of not wearing a mask now, which maybe I'll get heat for, maybe not. Don't really care. You're not wearing a mask. You're not doing the right thing. We all want this to end. So put aside your differences that let's say you don't think a mask's work, but this thing might end sooner if you do put it on, then just do it. Please. I want to be able to leave my home and go do things where I don't have to worry about dying. So just please, for everyone's sake, do it. And that's starting from everyone, athletes to regular people. I don't really care who you are. Obviously, if you're a baby under 2 years old, you don't have to wear this. I'm not going to force that on them. Just wear a mask, please. It's not worth it. We just talked about the Reds. Brendan, there's more stuff to talk about the Reds here with Trevor Bauer. Just funny. Now we go some comedy relief here with the league, just the league being the league.
Trevor Bauer is phenomenal. First of all, if you don't follow him on Twitter, please follow him on Twitter because he is one of the few MLB players. We talk about these unwritten rules, which we're going to get into in a second too. He does not care about anything. He follows the rules of Trevor Bauer, and that's about it. And starting back, was it last year when he was getting taken out and he threw the ball over the center field fence?
Great throw, by the way. Unreal talent.
That's a 400-foot bomb from his shoulder, which you hope he doesn't throw out his arm. But it's just so funny to watch. And he got custom free Joe Kelly cleats that he was going to wear at his next outing. And the MLB, being the no fun police, said, no, can't do that. You're going to be in trouble. And I wouldn't be surprised if he did it anyway. It's been all over Twitter where he's showing them off. He's wearing them around the clubhouse. It's just too funny, man.
Well, you look at him when the Astros were getting caught. This is in spring training. The Astros got caught for their whole scandal. If you don't remember that happened this year. But the COVID-19 virus sort of masked that. No pun intended. But you look at it, and he was pitching against the Astros, and he started to call out what pitch he was going to throw. They didn't hit it. And it's funny because the Astros top players are looking like baseball players that aren't cheating, and they look terrible. But unwritten rules in baseball. Joe Kelly gets suspended for throwing at the heads of Carlos Correa. That was pretty much the big one.
Yep.
And the league suspends him. An unwritten rule in baseball is when someone doesn't do something you like, you throw at them. Obviously, the head's rough, but you hit them. That's how you retaliate. You don't kill them. You don't berate them and go at their face and talk to them unless you want to. You don't Bryce Harper them with a helmet and try to hit it. That whole Strickland thing, that was great. Classic. You hit him. You just suspended Joe Kelly for doing something that's an unwritten rule in baseball, is that you hit someone if they do something you don't like. He didn't take their money, which is what the league should have done. He didn't suspend them because he doesn't have that power. Bob Manfred does. Rob Manfred, whatever his name is. He's terrible. He doesn't deserve his name being pronounced correctly. And now you look at it, and now we'll go to another unwritten rule. And that's if you're killing a team by a lot and you're up by a lot and you get a ball right down the middle on a 3-0 count. Yeah, probably in most scenarios, you shouldn't swing for the fences and hit an absolute a huge shot grand slam. But the fact that one of the rising talents in this game, and Tatis on the San Diego Padres, rising star, he leads the MLB in home runs with 11. Trout's at 10. Trout's not going to be a superstar forever in this league. I mean, probably until he retires, he will be, but he's face of the league at the end. At least I don't believe so. It's going to be a guy like Tatis, a guy like Acuna, those guys that are a lot younger coming up. Soto's another example. Hit the grand slam in a 3-0 count. They're up by 7 in the 8th inning. And the Texas Rangers were not happy that he did this. And I just don't understand, Brendan. It's baseball. You talked about it earlier with me. The Padres are how many games back?
When this happened, they were 11-12. They're still 5 games back, even though they've won the last 2. So it's not like this is a game they can afford to lose. And we've seen 7-run leads get blown before.
Yeah, I was going to say, Brendan, has there ever been a 7-run lead blown in a baseball game?
Anybody ever see Moneyball? What was the lead in that game when they won their 20th straight? I remember watching the Yankees come back from 9 down against the Red Sox. It happens. So what are you supposed to just, I'm going to take this pitch. How many times do you watch a broadcast and they go, oh, wow, you took a pitch right down the middle. You're lucky if you get one pitch like that a game. Well, he got it.
They said in the video game, MLB The Show.
Exactly, all the time. He got it, and guess what he did? He absolutely crushed it, and good for him. All right, now you're up 11. Try to come back from that.
Rangers manager, I'll just read a quote real quick. Woodward, following the game, this is what he said. There's a lot of unwritten rules that are constantly being challenged in today's game. I didn't like it personally, talking about what Tatis did. You're up by 7 in the 8th inning. It's typically not a good time to swing 3-0. It's kind of the way we were all raised in the game. But like I said, the norms are being challenged on a daily basis, so just because I don't like it doesn't mean it's not right. And while I respect what he said at the end, because he doesn't have to like it, his team got absolutely destroyed. Yeah. But this is what I think. Why is it a 3-0 count? You have the bases loaded. You're not walking him. You're going to throw a pitch down the middle. Tatis is an up-and-coming star. Do you think he wants to win the home run race? You bet he does. He's going against the best hitter ever in baseball, and Mike Trout, of this generation, possibly all time when it's said and done, just the way he plays. He's got to hit that out of the park, and he did. I don't understand how you could be angry. They're just salty. This is what it is. The Rangers are salty. They got absolutely mollywopped.
Yep.
The Padres can't afford to lose games. All right? So let's say, hypothetically speaking, he doesn't swing at that. He grounds out. The inning ends, right? They lose that game. You're going to tell me they're not looking back and going, wow, he got a pitch right down the middle on 3-0. He should have swung at that? There's no one. Texas did the same thing. You think that the manager is going to say, oh, yeah, we shouldn't have done that? No. The Padres are trying to win baseball games. You're trying to excitement. The whole lets the kids play. Don't put a 3-0 count on one of the top young players in the game. He's going to crush it. I'm full on for Tatis swinging 3-0. This isn't, this America's pastime. These unwritten rules are there. But look what happened to Joe Kelly. He threw at somebody going correctly from the rules and got in trouble anyway. So what is Tatis thinking? It's just baseball. You're trained. 3-0, he's probably getting a fastball. He got a 3-0 count with the bases loaded. He wanted the grand slam. So guess what? He did it. Rangers got mollywopped. Nothing more to say on that. You could go on.
Yeah, I mean, and then the best part about this whole thing is that the next day they're up 6, and he steals third base. So that's a big FU to the Texas Rangers.
We have to talk about that tag.
Oh, lack thereof.
Oh, my God. That was Frazier at third base. And I watched the replay. Initially, I thought he was safe off the bat. He looked safe, and obviously the umpire called him safe. What is Frazier doing? First off, he plays it off as if he did tag him and goes like this as he runs in, because that's got to be the most embarrassing thing in baseball. Yep. When you know in your head when you're playing a sport, if you got tagged or if you got tagged as a runner, 100%. I took your line. My bad, Brendan.
Yep.
You're out or you're safe. And for a fielder, if you got the tag on them. You could play it off all you want. And when we didn't have replay, that's all well and good. Frazier would probably have if there was no replay, they called him safe on the field. Frazier has a fit, probably gets ejected. Again, no replay challenging. They can show it on the broadcast. It's not as embarrassing. Then you go to live on the screen on the field. They go to the replay. They show the replay. Now your teammates see what happened. The fans see what happened. Your family at home just saw what you just did, and they're not inviting you back after you quarantine. It's embarrassing. It was so embarrassing to watch. Let's say he didn't think he tagged him, right? It would have been so much better if he didn't go like this. If he didn't go like this, like challenge the play. He had to do that, and oh my God, was he dead wrong? That has to be an out. Tatis could steal all the bases he wants. It's baseball. The kid's having fun. Let him play. I just don't understand. First off, that's got to be now. But the whole Tatis thing with hitting a grand slam, Rangers, don't put yourself in that position next time.
Yeah, I saw a video after the incident on Twitter because obviously in today's day and age, as soon as something like that happens where the Rangers threw a fit, everyone's going to go digging for stuff to pull up that said, oh, but you did this at a certain time. And they found a video. I think it was Mike Minor it was about to be a milestone strikeout for him. And it was the 9th inning, 2 outs. And he had 120-something pitches, gets the batter to hit a pop-up in foul territory. Should end the game. First baseman runs in, lets it drop. And then they look at him and go, all right, get the strikeout. Get the out. I mean, that's an unwritten rule. If you see just get the out. Why are you going to put the game and make it go on longer? Like, that's BS, right? Come on. So now all of a sudden this guy, everybody knows, you watching at home, people that have never played baseball, people that have played baseball, 3-0 count with bases loaded, you're going to get a fastball down the middle. And he did, and he hit it. So why are you going to be angry about it? Like you said, don't go down 3-0. Right? You're a professional pitcher. Throw a couple of strikes. And guess what? Down 3-0, you're down 7 runs. Don't give in with a fastball then. Throw a changeup.
Or walk him.
You didn't have a problem walking him the first 3 pitches. Right? So, I mean, it's just a ridiculous thing that we're even talking about this. The unwritten rules. The game's in color now, not black and white, right? This isn't 1822 anymore. Let's have some fun. Okay, we got guys shifting all over the field. We got the Rays putting 4 outfielders in the outfield. I'm sure there's an unwritten rule that says play your position. Come on.
I think it's another unwritten rule that relief pitchers don't start games either, but we're seeing that. This is a whole new...
It's a new age.
A new age of baseball. We saw it last year where the biggest thing was let the guys play. Everyone's having fun celebrating. You saw that baseball. They wear their nice uniforms, tucked in. I mean, first off, if we're going to change this game, why are they wearing pants in the summer, in the hottest time of the year? Give them nice shorts, make them wear compression pants. Yes, I get it. You're sliding, it hurts. Well, guess what? Everything has turf now. It's softer. The field and the outfield, I know turf burns, they suck. I get that. But, these guys are so hot, sweating their butts off. But no, that baseball, you always played with a jersey, long pants. Sorry, stirrups aren't in the game anymore. Do we have a problem with that? A few players wear stirrups, which I think is hysterical because I think
I love them.
Chris Taylor on the Dodgers wears stirrups. I think so. And there's a few guys that do it, but get away from the norm. It's not the same. It's not the same baseball we saw. First off, the norm back then was actually when pitchers pitched, they were supposed to let the guys hit it. That was the game plan.
One action.
Because they pitched like 40 miles an hour and they wanted action. Exactly. I think they probably honestly threw it underhand and they wanted action. So, if we're getting back to that, then these pitchers should just let them hit they let them hit the 3-0 count and Tatis crushed it. So that's exactly what you wanted 200 years ago, if my math's probably not right. But I mean, you just look at it. We have to check our math on your 1822 thing and mine because they were definitely wrong.
Mine was called a classic exaggeration. Okay. But you talk about the Yankees only wear pinstripes when they're home. Now they got these nickname player weekend jerseys, unwritten rule broken. What about the Reds with their sleeveless jerseys, right? So it's obvious that the times they're changing, right? It's not the same baseball you're used to watching. And the fact that we're getting angry, like this guy gets paid to hit home runs, right? And he did his job. The pitcher didn't. And that's the end of the discussion right there. Tatis Jr. is one of the most exciting players to watch in the game. And I guarantee you, every single fan at home, every Padres fan at least, the 7 of them, we're like, oh, yeah, let's go. Look what he just did. And if he takes that pitch right down the middle, you're like, what are you looking at? What are you waiting for? So he did his job. He got the hit.
I'm not talking about an unwritten rule here, but again, showing how the game's changed. You think they had batting gloves when they first started playing baseball? No, they had batting gloves to give a better grip. Did everyone have a problem with that back then? Probably. Guess who wears batting? Guess the majority of leagues wear batting gloves now. Every player, pretty much, besides a few, wear batting gloves. They definitely had a problem with that back in the day because it gives you an advantage. Look at the rosin bag. All these things to help advance the game. Yes, we're talking about a 3-0 count, a little different, but what I'm trying to prove here with my crazy way is that the game has changed. There's things that are unwritten, but you're not going to stay like that forever. Things have to change, and we're seeing it. Unwritten rule in baseball, Brendan, is you can have black players in the league. That was a rule back then.
It was a rule back then.
They attacked the Dodgers when Jackie Robinson was called up. They didn't want that to happen. He can't be in this league, blah, blah. That was a rule for them back then. Not a rule now. Things are open to change. That's an aggressive thing I'm saying here right now. Obviously, it's a lot different. That's because, times were different back then. It was never right, ever. But I'm saying, though, is you have to be open to change if you're the MLB. And the way that Manfred handled this whole entire thing, first off, this all stems back from what he did with the Astros, which is what's happening this year. He does this thing with the Astros. He doesn't penalize them. Joe Kelly gets suspended because Manfred can't do his job. Now you want to suspend Trevor Bauer and get him because freedom of speech, and he's going to wear cleats on the field. That's first off, it's going to give baseball recognition. It's going to make Manfred look terrible. The more fans are going to watch when they see players doing that stuff. And the whole thing with baseball is it's a quote-unquote dying sport. Not many people are watching it. You're telling me that Tatis walking is going to bring more fans to the game than watching him absolutely crush a baseball? It's common sense. You want to make money in this game, you have to play baseball and hit home runs. This is a home run or nothing, which is what we've seen recently in the past. Launch angle, that's the biggest thing is you want more people to watch, you have to have more home runs. The ball is being juiced. Why did Rob Manfred decide to do that? If that's the case, we can't prove it. Why they decide to do that? Because they wanted more views. You let the kids play, you get more views. It's that simple.
I think the biggest one that, is being completely ignored here is the fact that the intentional walk used to be if you miss wide, you're going to score. And now all of a sudden it's just, we're going to give him a free pass to first. The game is obviously changing and it's not the same way it used to be. So you could throw the unwritten rules out the window. When we come back from the commercial break, we will talk about New York baseball. We will dive into the Mets playing a little bit better as of late. And we will talk about the Yankees who had a disappointing defeat again today. So stay with us.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. You're listening to the BS Sports Show on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
All right, we are back with the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. This is the BS Sports Show, and now we're going to dive into some New York sports, starting with the New York Mets. Obviously, the Mets are 11-14 now, not an ideal by any stretch of the imagination, but we have to remember it is a 16-team postseason in the MLB. So all hope is not lost. They have a couple of players who are starting to shine. Dom Smith has really come into his own this season, just putting up godly numbers. And Robinson Cano, despite a bad game yesterday, he's still doing some great things for somebody that was viewed as the throw-in in the Edwin Diaz trade.
Yeah, Dom Smith, 311 on the year so far, 6 homers, 20 RBIs, a 1.135 OPS. This is a guy that didn't get many opportunities, and when it seemed like he would get the biggest chance ever, Pete Alonso came to the show and took that from him. First base, Dom Smith, that's his position. It is first base. They use him in the outfield. He's been better, I think, than anticipated. He's serviceable out there. It's tough to go to a different position, but the thing about this, which is great, is this is a year of the DH. They have the DH, a universal DH, and when, I know Cano played DH, I think it was last night, McNeil played second. Dom Smith plays the outfield, or he's got to hit the bench and come up as a pinch hitter. But to balance the fact that you don't know where you're going to play on a given night, if you're going to play at all, and you're still putting up numbers like this is a great sign for the Mets, because Dom Smith is a guy where it seemed like they would have to trade him. No position at first base. Could he play the outfield? Maybe, but the Mets have outfielders that they could play there. And then you look at it, we have to trade him to an American League team because he's either first base or a career DH. And that's really the route they thought he would go, but he wasn't doing well hitting. So can he be in a DH? Maybe not. And now you're seeing that this year has been great for him because he's allowed to play at multiple spots. There were a lot of injuries, which no one ever wants for their teammates to get hurt, but it gives you an opportunity. And Robinson Cano comes back from being hurt. He saw a drop in his average to a whopping, now it's at 393, 4 home runs, 13 RBIs, 1.105 OPS. He's playing great baseball, and the Mets need him to play great baseball.
They really do. And let me correct myself. The Mets won tonight, so they are now 12-14. They're 2.5 games back of Atlanta, which really it's an amazing thing. Obviously, Mike Soroka going down with an injury has hindered the Braves, and this NL East is wide open. The Braves are in first with 14-11, and after that it's 9-9, 9-10, 12-14, 9-12. So there is nobody that is remotely close to running away with it. And the Mets are starting to figure it out a little bit. And if they could win their divisional games, they have a legitimate chance at finishing first. And Robinson Cano, Dom Smith, and I think the key is the bullpen. Obviously, DeGrom, a phenomenal starting pitcher. But after that, their rotation's a little shaky with Stroman and Syndergaard missing the remainder of the season. So I think that their bullpen's going to have to step up. So far, at least during this stretch, they have been good. Their bullpen has an ERA of 4.42 before this game tonight. Their starters at 5.49. So it's a little bit of a role reversal from last year. And if the New York Mets are going to have a chance at making the 16-team postseason and potentially getting one of the higher seeds in the National League, the bullpen is going to have to be the backbone of that run.
Yeah, like you said, DeGrom a great pitcher, and he showed it again tonight. He went 6 innings, 4 hits, 7 Ks, no runs, no walks. You got to win the games that DeGrom pitches. You have to. It's not even an option. And you see the bullpen come in. Familia comes in. He gives up a run. Betances later comes in, gives up 2 earned runs. Diaz with a walk in 1 1/3 inning, which I guess he'll take that. He didn't give up a single run, so That's pretty cool. But you look at their bullpen, and the biggest thing was, let's get Betances in here. Let's get this bullpen ERA down. Let's give us a fighting chance. And it hasn't been great. 4.42 ERA. Like you said, it's really the bullpen because, you don't have, like you said, you don't have Stroman, you don't have Syndergaard. You have a weak starting rotation this year. And if you're going to win one out of every 3 or 4 days, because you have DeGrom on the mound, again, you have to win those games because he's the best pitcher in baseball. He can't go 5, 6 innings, give up 0 runs, and the offense provide him with nothing. Because if it's 0-0 going into the bullpen, chances are the Mets are going to lose the game. And as well as if DeGrom goes out there and pitches an absolute gem of 7 innings and he leaves with the lead, sometimes it's over. Met fans have no confidence in this bullpen. And I think it was a major issue that they tried to correct this year, again, with Betances, bringing other key pieces as well. But again, Betances coming off an injury. It's going to take him a little bit to get used to it. We're seeing that it's not lights out Betances right now. I mean, he's been better. Yes, but again, he's got to get his games underneath him. But the Mets, again, their offense is they're a very good offensive team on paper. Again, Alonso struggling to be what he was last year. You had a lot of injuries. McNeil was out. Cano was out. People have stepped up, not to the extent that we'll talk about with the Yankees, because the Yankees, just the depth's completely different schedule, different teams, whatever. But the Mets are not out of this. Like you said, expanded playoffs. We just have to see this bullpen get the ERAs down because no starter besides DeGrom is going 5+ innings.
Yeah, and amazingly, you read DeGrom's stat line. Still did not get a win tonight. Another no decision. Edwin Diaz picks up the win. And you just feel for the guy because it's night in and every single start. It's what you're going to get. And it's just perfection pretty much every time he touches the mound. And they just can't win for him. Like, just give the guy a win. It's just so – like, if he was on any other team, and of course we're going to talk about the Yankees next, but if he was on the Yankees, imagine how many wins he would have. Like, just the – I don't have the numbers in front of me, and I want to dive into it, but just it's mind-boggling how many starts in a row this guy gives up less than 2 runs. The Yankees score a lot more.
I don't know that stat. I don't know if this stat's not up to date, but I sort of remember a stat which paints the picture. He has 47. I'm making this up. It's close to this. 46 of 47 wins when this stat came out. 50-something no decisions.
It's wild.
You put him on the Yankees. First off, those numbers are completely flip-flopped, and he's probably got close to 80 wins. I mean, looking at a guy that came up as a shortstop. This is a guy that was a shortstop, not even a pitcher. He was a shortstop, and he is Garrett Cole is amazing. We love him, blah, blah, blah. Jacob DeGrom is on another level. When you say, like, when he goes out there, you expect no, it is perfection every time. What the Mets really need this year, which they're not going to have, is him batting. Let him at least help his cause because they're not helping him at all. He's a great hitter. Again, shortstop. Pretty sure he's a left-handed hitter as well.
He is.
So that puts him in an even better position. So I think, it's just sad to see because as Yankee fans, we're not accustomed to seeing our team lose often. When I say lose, I mean they usually make the playoffs. Even the year that Derek Jeter left, they just missed the playoffs, but they had an over 500 record.
They've been over 500 for like 20 seasons now.
It's crazy. But it just goes to show that you put a DeGrom on any other team, he might be the greatest pitcher of all time based on stat. It's just kind of crazy how good he is and how it's like he's in LA with Trout. People on the East Coast, it's like, oh, Trout's an amazing player. We don't really get to watch his ability. People that don't follow the Mets look at this and go, oh, let me look at his season numbers real quick. On the year, it's loading. Oh, in 5 games, he's only 2-0, 1.93 ERA. 2-0 in 5 games. He should be 5-0 with a 1.93 ERA, 35 strikeouts in 28 innings, a whip of .89. This is MLB career stats, by the way. This is win-loss record. And then I'll tell you his actual numbers. 68 and 49. 2.61 ERA. In 1,129 innings, he has 1,290 strikeouts, 1.05 whip.
He's unreal. It's really feasible that he might have the fewest wins in the Hall of Fame. Because, I mean, the numbers, he's won back-to-back Cy Youngs. He's well on his way to winning a 3rd straight. His numbers are that good. But again, we talk about his no decisions. He might go into the Hall of Fame with the fewest wins all time as a starting pitcher. And what an anomaly that will be.
You ready for this number that I just pulled out of my you-know-what? Because apparently I'm good at math now. His winning percentage as a pitcher based on his amount of games played in his career and the amount of wins at 68. He is winning 38.63% of his starts.
It just sounds way too low for those
numbers. Sorry, I did not round up. I'm sorry, I didn't round up. 38.64.
Oh, big difference. Now he's great. It's honestly, you just can't speak to how good he is and it's not like they don't score. Like, we've seen this team score. We just mentioned the offensive numbers that they have this season. It's just when he goes on the mound, something it's like the only thing I could actually compare it to is Henrik Lundqvist, because whenever he's in goal, the Rangers just stop playing defense. You're going to face 45 shots. Please stop them. But when the backup comes in, all of a sudden they look like they're all going to win the Norris Trophy. And it's the same thing with DeGrom. It's just a level of comfort knowing we could only score 3 runs and we're going to win this game. The problem is they don't score 3 runs when you think like that.
It's just remarkable to see. And obviously 10 years down the road when he's retired and we're talking about he's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's got the numbers for it. It's just, is he ever going to win? And then you look back, compare him to Lundqvist. If you put him on the Yankees right now, let's say they don't have Garrett Cole because you have DeGrom. Let's say they drafted DeGrom and you still have Garrett Cole. Holy crap.
Yeah. I mean, you're winning. They would have won today. I mean, you talk about how the Mets bullpen, right? The Mets bullpen gave up a couple of runs, but they wound up winning. Yankees bullpen, Zach Britton came in, gave up 2 runs, down 4-2 in the bottom of the 9th. Chaz Rowe comes in for Tampa Bay, walks Gleyber Torres, walks Gary Sanchez, 1st and 2nd, nobody out. You get a line out by Brett Gardner. A wild pitch moves the runners up to 2nd and 3rd. Miguel Andujar pinch hit, strikeout. Tyro Estrada strikeout. And it's been the story of why the Yankees haven't won a World Series yet. It's been the story of why they have trouble winning close games. And it's because of the simple fact that they do not get that big hit when they need it. We saw it in the first game of the series. Luke Voigt struck out with the bases loaded. And it's hard to be angry at him because he's going on a tear. But just nobody can get that hit. You can't have 2nd and 3rd, 1 out and strike out and then strike out again. If you got to get the ball in the outfield, you can't have 1st and 2nd, nobody out and just do nothing. It's really frustrating because this is the one team that they have to beat. And now Tampa Bay is at 16-9. They're a half game back of the Yankees. And you had your ace on the mound today. He pitched very well. Tyler Glasnow pitched very well also, but you got to trust that your bullpen is better. And right now the Yankees bullpen's not better than Tampa Bay. And Tampa Bay has that camaraderie that just makes them a scary, scary team.
Tampa Bay is so good. And credit Cash, the way he plays his team, he does so many things. Again, he starts relief pitchers. He pretty much brought that into the league that we're seeing it now. And it doesn't work for every other team. It doesn't work at all. But, looking at the Yankees, last night against the Rays, Tanaka, they expected Tanaka, I think they wanted to throw 75 pitches, go 5 innings. He didn't do that. He goes 4 innings, 8 hits, 6 runs, 5 earned, allows 2 home runs. They split the doubleheader, but they still don't beat the Rays. They just don't beat them. And
they're now 1-6, 1-5.
Yeah, the Rays are their kryptonite, and yes, okay, fine. You don't have Judge, who should be back Saturday, I believe. You don't have Judge. You don't have Stanton. LeMahieu's hurt. Those are your best 3 hitters, but it doesn't matter because this Yankee lineup, the whole point of this Yankee lineup is the fact that we saw it last year. It doesn't matter who gets hurt, the next man up, but they have so much. Look at the Mets. The Mets lose their top 3 hitters. They are donezo.
Yeah.
They're done. Nothing. Yes, you call up a few guys. They play well. Fine, but it's not long-term. Judge behind
Right
you.
behind me. I love Aaron Judge. I think he's a great player. Yes, I think he's injury prone, but I think he's one of the best players in baseball. And if he was up at the plate this year, I do have faith that he might have done something. But overall, anybody that comes up in the bottom of the ninth, I just don't have faith.
Definitely not Stanton.
No, the only one is LeMahieu, right? That's the only one that when he comes up, I go, all right, you could book it that a run's going to get scored. And every single year they find that one gem that comes out and winds up helping them by getting all these clutch hits. 2 years ago was Miguel Andujar. Last year, LeMahieu came out of nowhere. Gio Urshela came out of nowhere, and they helped produce. Gleyber Torres has been consistent. He struggled this year, and he comes up in the ninth. He walks. He gets on base. Sanchez, who's prone to striking out every 2 seconds, gets on base. And then the next guys come up, and they just haven't found that. And granted, it's a unique season. They're 16-8, so you'll take that 16-8 start. Most teams would love to be in that position. Making the playoffs isn't going to be a challenge for them. But when you're the Yankees, it's not about making the playoffs. It's about finishing first and going to the World Series. And right now, I mean, as good as they looked against Boston is as bad as they looked against Tampa Bay.
I can't disagree with anything you said because it's just, again, no one comes up with that big hit, and the Yankees have to – good teams beat good teams. Great teams beat good teams and bad teams, and Yankees just can't get it done against the Rays. And the worst thing is that the Rays are right behind them.
Yep.
And nothing's, everyone's like, oh, the Yankees are going to have an unreal record this year. And then you knew in the back of your head there was going to be injuries. Did you expect LeMahieu to go down? Absolutely not. He's the last one you would expect to go down because he hasn't been injury prone throughout his career, but Judge and Stanton have. And it's tough because they're not freak injuries. Judge's last year's was. This is not a freak injury. It's just because you can't run and you pull stuff, and it's terrible to see. But you look at what the Yankees did yesterday, and they did something really interesting. They let off with Luke Voit. And before you all go, why'd they do that? It makes no sense. First off, he's killing it right now. And given the fact that, especially against the Rays, Blake Snell was on the mound. It's a lefty against a righty. Voit hits righties well. Luke Voit gets on base. He's a home run power hitter. He's not fast either. His on base percentage right now obviously doesn't consider what happened tonight.
Yep.
Last night, he's an on base percentage of .372. He gets on base. The biggest thing is, as a leadoff guy, you have to get on base. Now, he's not going to steal a base for you. He's not going to advance to third on a single. But he gets on base, and that's the biggest thing to set the lineup. And his bat is just red hot. He hit a home run tonight again, so I think
he's got 4 in his last 3, I believe.
Yeah, it's absurd what he's doing, but that's the Yankees. Bombers. You hit the ball, that's how you score your runs, but we've seen that come back to bite the Yankees in the playoffs where they rely so heavily on the home run ball. When you go into the playoffs, it's like in hockey. The offensive talented teams we saw in the playoffs this year aren't the ones that got it done. It was the defensive first teams that gave the offensive teams a lot of trouble. And in baseball, same thing in the playoffs. You're not going to get a lackadaisical pitch down the middle. You're not going to get a 3-0 pitch down the middle with the bases loaded. It's not going to happen. So I think the fact that it's all good to see Luke Voit hitting bombs, the Yankees hitting bombs, Sanchez finally hit a few home runs. But I'd rather see a double into the gap or just a base hit up the middle. I mean, granted, a base up the middle against the Rays is an out. Again, like most teams, because of the shift. But it's just...
I'd rather see somebody just come through with a runner in scoring position in the bottom of the ninth to win the game.
And the thing is, Aaron Judge was coming through, but when they were losing...
Yeah.
When the game seemed lost, Judge brought them back to life and won them a couple of games this year, for sure. But a tied game with people on, no, I don't have the faith. And Garrett Cole could do whatever he wants to do in the mound. The bullpen could be lights out. It's all about coming in clutch. And nobody on that team besides LeMahieu, and we'll see what happens this year, has that clutch factor. Judge is clutch when it doesn't, quote unquote, I mean, okay, it matters. But he's clutch when the team's losing. So, yes, it's great. We want the wins. But you want Judge with the first and third, 2 outs in the bottom of the ninth, to come through with a base hit. Fine, hit a home run there. I don't really care. Walk. You cannot. We saw 2 guys strike out. You got to put the ball in play. Andujar's got to put the ball in play. His at-bats are limited.
Yep.
Gio Urshela is their third baseman because he's a wizard with the glove and he still hits. He's not obviously hitting to the level he hit at last year, but shorter sample size, splitting time a little bit. That, everything about this year is different. But Andujar's got to be a guy that you got to put that ball, take it opposite field, just hit. You have to make contact. You can't strike out. Striking out is the worst thing because it doesn't help your team at all. It is the worst possible thing you could do there. And I think for Andujar, it could really limit his at-bats. Granted, everyone's hurt, so he's going to play. He's not going to learn his lesson there because Boone doesn't have the luxury of just sitting him. I mean, he can if he wants to. I don't think we'll see that. And because Boone's, 100+ wins in both seasons for Boone, the way he manages, yes, he has a talented team, but he's done a solid job. Maybe some questionable bullpen calls or decision-making. But the Yankees have to find a way to come through. Some player that's been coming through has been Clint Frazier. Since he's been coming up with the mask, who cares that he wears the mask? This is before tonight. 409, 2 home runs, 8 RBIs, 1.277 OPS. Like I said, since coming up, Tauchman, 333, 0 homers, 7 RBIs, 4 stolen bases. He is a speedster. No one gives him credit for that. 856 OPS. But like you said, Sanchez struggling, Torres is struggling. Sanchez, I'm not as worried about, like we talked about last week on the episode. It's because Torres is not expected to do this. You expect Sanchez to not hit. It's a fact. He's not going to be a 285, 275, not even a 265 hitter. He's going to be below 250, 240, 230 maybe. Hit 30 home runs, bring in 90-plus RBIs, maybe 80. Again, if he's not going to do anything besides hit home runs, he's not going to do that. I think it was a solo shot yesterday. It's just, and Chapman's back. That's all great and all. The bullpen hasn't really been a huge problem this year, and bringing Chapman back, we saw what happened in the playoffs with him last year. Again, Astros cheated, so, I mean, you knew it was coming, but regardless, they have to have guys come in, and you can't take a guy like Clint Frazier out of the lineup right now. First off, he's played solid in the field when he's played. Well, all right, first off, you can't play worse than you did last year.
No, but that's setting the bar at Little League level.
Well, we have to.
This guy's an MLB outfielder. There was a double today by Austin Meadows that he just jogged to, and then it took a carom off the wall, and he just watched it roll, and it was just a debacle. I think he's completely, utterly gifted offensively, and he's worked at the outfield, and like you said, he's better than last year. But to me, this is a guy that's going to DH, right? Or a guy that's going to be limited in the outfield at best. And you have Stanton, who trips on grass and gets hurt. So what do you do in that situation? You can't have 2 DHs, right? They got to figure that out. Obviously, you talked about how good Tauchman's been. That's another outfielder that you want to get playing time. What do you do with Andujar? I personally think he gets dealt at the deadline if they find a team that's going to be able to give them a good starting pitcher. Yeah, they are 10-2 at home this season, so Yankee Stadium's good for them. They have won 10 straight against the Boston Red Sox. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention they swept their arch rival, which isn't really a rivalry anymore. They outscored them 31-13 in that series. But they have to find it within themselves to get these clutch at-bats. I mean, we talked about how the good teams, the Houston Astros, right? Yes, they were cheating, but Altuve comes up bottom ninth, it's a home run. When the Boston Red Sox won the World Series, every time they came up to the plate with runners in scoring position, they were able to bring them in. Every single team that goes all the way or has that World Series aspiration has to find it within themselves to come up with runners in scoring position and get hits. And what I've seen the last 2 days, it's demoralizing because this is the best pitching staff they've faced all year. And it's probably going to be one of the best pitching staffs they do face, regardless of who they play, playoffs or not. And they haven't been able to get it done. They've scored 5 runs in 2 games, and they haven't been able to get the hits when it matters. So somebody like Frazier, who he's been great offensively, but you got to be good defensively. You can't give up runs if you're not going to score him in a tight game. So his playing time is going to be limited, and it stinks. And you talk 2 pitchers that I want to mention quickly are Tanaka and Paxton, who may be playing themselves out of the contract. They're both free agents this year. Tanaka, you have a little more leniency with because of how good he is in the postseason, but you got Marcus Stroman who's going to be on the market. You got pitchers that will be free agents. You got Clark Schmidt waiting in the wings. You have Montgomery who's proven himself to be a good pitcher. Herman hopefully coming back. Severino hopefully coming back. They're playing themselves out of contracts. And the thing that I look towards the most right now is which one of them, if not both of them, will step up and start to pitch and be that number 2 guy, because they're going to need that come postseason.
Yeah, I mean, it's just – you need it, and I don't think Paxton right now is getting a contract. There's just zero reason to. Like you said, Clark Schmidt. You have young guys waiting in the wings or whatever the expression is, And it's just you're playing yourself out of contract. I completely agree with that. I think Tanaka has got to do a better job. You cannot do what you did last night there.
Yep.
Before we close out the show, two things. First off, I just want to say, on the behalf of BS Sports Show, rest in peace to Dale Harachuk,
Yep.
Winnipeg Jets legend, passed away at the age of 57, stomach cancer. Thoughts are with his family and friends because he was a legend, gone way too soon. Finally, before we go, a little hockey update, Brendan, because you know who's still alive right now? The Montreal Canadiens are, as they won 5-3. They put up 33 shots. Carter Hart does not get his third consecutive shutout. Another series that we really didn't expect to see. You know, Canadiens did one thing in the first round. That's one thing. You're in the qualifiers. It's like looking at Chicago and going, they had a chance against Vegas. Yeah, Montreal, the Flyers were unbelievably if the Flyers get eliminated by Montreal, oh boy. I mean, yes, they're still up. The Flyers are still up 3-2 in the series, but if this is how it works, right? If the Islanders cap off against the Caps, if that I hate myself. If that happens and they win and the Flyers beat, the Islanders play the Flyers in the next round, and that God, I hate the Flyers. That gets me going. But hockey, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think if the Flyers, I think they will, but if they do manage to get past Montreal, they're going to come out like a bat out of hell. And I don't like that matchup for the Islanders, let alone any other team. But we still have to wait and see. Obviously, there's great hockey left to be played. I'm very thankful that the Lightning Blue Jacket series is over, because every time we have a podcast, they decide to go to overtime, so we don't have to worry about that anymore. And, you know, obviously next week we'll have a lot different outlook on the NHL. We'll be in the second round, and it'll definitely be fun to talk about. If you don't already, please go follow the show on Twitter at BS_sports show, and our personal accounts at Stefan_Rosner and at Azoff Brendan. Thank you all for hanging out with us again tonight, and we look forward to another great episode next week.
See you guys. Thank you.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.